It's the summer of 2059 in New York City. And if you're picturing, these clean, chrome-plated skyscrapers and perfectly regulated air, you really need to scrap that image.
Yeah, that's not the world we're stepping into at all.
Not even close.
Yeah.
The reality we are diving into today is just sweating. It's oppressive. The source material, the case files, they describe the sky as looking like sour milk.
Ugh, that's such a visceral image.
Isn't it? And the air has the consistency of syrup. It's that kind of suffocating heat that doesn't just make you uncomfortable, it feels like it makes the whole city angry.
And that's a really crucial distinction to make right off the bat. We often fall into this trap of thinking that a futuristic setting means everything's sterile and clean.
Right, that technology has solved all the messy problems.
Exactly. But in the world of Lieutenant Eve Dallas, and specifically in this investigation, the one they dubbed the Portrait Killer, technology hasn't fixed the weather, and it sure as hell hasn't fixed human nature.
If anything, it's just given it new tools.
Precisely. In fact, this heat wave is almost a character in the story. They call it the agitation index. When the temperature and humidity stay that high for that long, crimes of passion, they spike, tempers fray, the whole social contract gets very, very thin.
Sour milk skies.
Yeah.
I mean, that phrase, it just stuck with me from the very first page of the notes. It sets this immediate tone of spoilage, like everything is turning bad.
It's rotting from the inside out.
Yes. And right in the middle of all this atmospheric rot, we get the inciting incident. And it's not some high glamour corporate espionage thing. It is so gritty. We're on Delancey Street, Lower East Side. It's early morning, the air is already choking, and we have a dispute.
A dispute over garbage, of all things.
Exactly. Or, to be really specific, a dispute over recycling protocols.
Yeah.
You got a shopkeeper, a guy named Remke, who runs a little dairy mart, and then there's a city maintenance worker named Poole.
And they're just screaming at each other on the sidewalk.
Screaming, and why? Because the locks on the public recycling bin are broken.
Which, you have to understand, in 2059, this is a major bureaucratic headache. Waste management is so strictly regulated. There are separate bins for plastics, papers, organics. You mix them up, you get a fine. You break the locks, you get a fine.
So this isn't just two guys being cranky in the heat.
No, they are genuinely stressing over the tiny details of city living. It's incredibly, almost painfully mundane.
But it grounds the story, doesn't it? It feels so real. You're standing there worried about a ticket from the sanitation department, and you have no idea that you are inches away from an absolute horror show.
Not at all.
So they stop yelling at each other long enough to actually open the bin. They need to check the capacity, see what's going on. They lift the lid of the organic side.
And that is the exact moment where the mundane reality of a New York street just crashes headfirst into a killer's twisted fantasy.
Because inside that bin, shoved in there with the compost and the food waste, is the body of a young woman. I really want to pause on that for a second. The placement of the body, it feels so significant. He didn't just dump her in an alley. He sorted her.
That's a very dark, but I think a very accurate way to put it. She was in the organic bin. On a psychological level, that tells us so much about the killer right away.
What does it tell you?
It tells me that to him, she was no longer a person. She wasn't even an enemy or an object of hate. She was just biological matter.
Raw material.
Raw material that had served its purpose and now needed to be discarded in the appropriate container. It implies this terrifying level of detachment. It's chilling.
It almost suggests a killer who, on some level, follows the rules, right?
Yeah.
He didn't just throw her in with the plastics. He put her in with the organics. He's compliant with city ordinances while in the middle of committing a capital crime.
It creates a profile of someone who is deeply, deeply compartmentalized. He can separate the art, which we're definitely going to get to, from the cleanup. The cleanup is just a chore. It's taking out the trash.
So the victim, let's talk about her. Her name was Rachel Howard. And usually in these kinds of stories, the victim has a secret, They were into something shady or they were in the wrong place at the wrong time.
But reading the profile on Rachel, she's almost an anomaly in a city like this.
She really is.
She's an archetype. She is the good girl. And I don't use that term dismissively at all. It's actually central to why she was chosen by him.
Okay, so tell us about her.
Rachel was 20 years old, a student at Columbia University. She worked a part-time job at a 247 convenience store to help pay her bills. Just a normal, hardworking kid.
And the interviews with people who knew her, they're almost universally glowing. Remke, the shopkeeper who found her body, he's just devastated. He talks about her smile. Her roommates describe her as the mother hen of their apartment.
She fits this profile of pure light. That's a phrase that comes up again and again in the investigation. She didn't sleep around. The files note that she was reportedly saving herself for marriage, which in 2059 is seen as a little old-fashioned, but it was deeply part of her character.
She collected teddy bears.
She collected teddy bears. She was cheerful. She was helpful.
So in a city that's described as smelling like sour milk, she was. She was fresh.
Precisely. And that freshness, that untainted quality is what put a target on her back. This was not a crime of opportunity where the killer just grabbed the first person he saw.
No, he was hunting.
He was hunting for a specific quality. He needed innocence. You can't fake that light, A predator like this, someone who is obsessed with visual aesthetics, he can see the difference between someone who's street-hardened and someone who is genuinely, truly open to the world. And Rachel was open.
Let's move to the crime scene analysis then. Lieutenant Eve Dallas arrives. And we should probably mention, before she even gets there, she's dealing with her own domestic chaos involving a cat and a butler.
Shuckles.
Yes, which we will definitely loop back to because it's just hilarious and says so much about her.
It really does. But she gets to Delancey Street. She pulls the body out of the bin herself. What does the medical examiner, a guy named Morris, tell her? So the medical analysis is where the central contradiction of this case really starts to take shape. You have the utter disrespect of the body dumped in the trash. But the cause of death, it was incredibly clean.
A single puncture wound to the heart.
One shot.
One shot.
Likely a stiletto or an ice pick.
Yeah.
A thin, round blade. There were no hesitation marks, no defensive wounds on her hands from trying to grab the weapon.
She didn't fight back?
Not at all. No multiple stab wounds suggesting a frenzy or a crime of passion. It was clinical. It was efficient.
And Morris confirms there was no sexual assault.
Correct. And in abduction murder cases involving young women, the absence of sexual assault is a massive, massive profiling marker. It immediately shifts the motive away from physical lust. The killer didn't want to use her body for gratification in that way.
But he did use her body,
Yeah.
just for something else entirely. The details about the staging they're just haunting.
Yeah. They found ligature marks on her wrists and knees. But Morris determines, based on the bruising patterns and the total lack of struggle, that she wasn't tied up to prevent her from escaping.
She was tied up to be posed.
Posed like a subject. The files say she was wired to a chair, hands folded neatly in her lap, legs crossed. It was a tableau, a constructed scene.
But the detail that really, it really made my skin crawl, the one that I think defines this entire case, is the nuskin. Can you explain what that is for everyone?
This is the absolute smoking gun of the killer's psychology. Nuskin is a common product in this world. It's basically a liquid bandage you paint on to seal a cut.
Okay.
The medical examiner found a patch of unmedicated nuskin over the puncture wound in her heart.
Wait, I need to get the timeline straight here. So he stabs her, she dies,
Yeah.
and then he puts a bandage on the wound.
Yes. Post-mortem.
Why? I don't. Why would you bother patching up a dead body that you're about to throw in a dumpster?
Because of the blood. If
Yeah.
you stab someone directly in the heart, there's going to be bleed out. It's messy. It stains the clothes. The killer applied the nuskin to seal the wound so that her simple blue shirt would remain absolutely pristine. He cleaned her up. He fixed her hair. He even applied makeup. The report specifies a Barrymore lip dye to enhance her features.
He was prepping her for a photo shoot.
Exactly. He turned the corpse into a model. He didn't want a picture of a messy, violent murder scene. He wanted a picture of perfect death. The nuskin allowed him to control the entire aesthetic.
And then, and this is the part that I just can't get past, once he took the picture, he ripped the bandage off.
That is the crucial disconnect. That shows you everything you need to know about his mind. Once the shutter clicked, the art was captured, the image was secured. In that exact moment, the physical body ceased to have any value to him.
He reverted to being just trash.
It's a husk, so he removes the bandage, maybe to reuse it, maybe just because he didn't care anymore, it was irrelevant, and he dumps her in the organic bin.
That hierarchy of values is just terrifying. The image is everything. The life is, it's not even on the list.
It's the ultimate objectification. We talk about objectification in media all the time, but this makes it terrifyingly literal. The person is destroyed in order to create the image. The image becomes the only reality that matters to the killer.
And we know this isn't just speculation. We know this because we actually have a window directly into his mind. We have the manifesto. The source material for this dive includes excerpts from the killer's own journal.
Which is so rare. It's incredibly rare to get such a clear, unfiltered look at the delusion as it's happening. The killer writes, And I'm quoting here, "We begin to die with our first breath. Death is inside us, ticking closer." He has this profound obsession with the transience of life. He views aging as a kind of corruption.
He genuinely thinks he's doing them a favor, doesn't he?
Oh, he absolutely does, 100%. He writes, "I have given her immortality. Is there any greater love?" In his mind, by killing Rachel at the absolute peak of her youth and her beauty, and then capturing that one perfect moment on film, he has stopped time for her.
So she'll never get wrinkles.
Yeah.
She'll never be sad.
She will never lose that light. That's the key for him.
It's a very, very warped version of a savior complex.
It's a god complex mixed with an artist's vanity. He believes he is the only one who can save these women from the ravages of time, from the ugliness of life.
And he talks about the light constantly. He says he absorbs it.
That's the parasitic element, isn't it? He writes, "I have studied life and death. In the end, we become the light." He feels energized after the murder. He feels reborn. It's almost vampiric, but instead of blood, he's feeding on their vitality, their essence.
And he needs an audience for his work. He didn't just put the photo in a private scrapbook. He sent it to the media.
Right. He transmitted a professional quality digital file to Nadine First. She's the top crime reporter for a place called Channel 75. The message attached was cryptic, but so telling. It said, "She was the first, and her light was pure. It will shine on forever."
She was the first. That's not just a statement. That's a threat.
That's the ticking clock for the whole investigation. He is telling the police, and by extension the entire city, "I have started a collection."
So, Lieutenant Dallas now has a profile taking shape. An artist, delusional, incredibly organized, tech-savvy. Now she has to figure out the how. How did it get to Rachel? Because she just wasn't the type to wander off with a stranger.
So the investigation pivots to her timeline. Rachel was last seen leaving a class at Columbia University at around 9:00 p.m. The class was called Faces, Portraits in the City.
Oh, come on. The irony is just palpable. The victim was studying photography. The killer is a photographer.
It's the strongest link they have. Dallas immediately theorizes that the killer likely stalked her through this shared interest. Maybe he audited the class. Maybe he just hung around the arts building. It connects the victim directly to the killer's specific obsession.
And then there's the abduction theory. Dallas has a term for it. The safe face.
This is a concept that is so important for people to understand about predator psychology. Most of us, we think of an abductor as, a guy in a ski mask jumping out of the bushes.
The monster in the shadows.
Exactly. But successful predators are often safe faces. They look normal. They blend in. They might be someone you've seen around the neighborhood a dozen times, a fellow student, a regular customer at your job. They don't set off your internal alarms.
And Rachel didn't scream. She didn't fight. The security droids at the university, they didn't register any kind of disturbance.
Which implies she went willingly, or was at least lured by a ruse that didn't trigger her fear response. Something like, "Hey, Rachel, I have that lens you wanted to see," or "Can you help me with this lighting setup for a second?" If the killer was a safe face, she would have walked right into the trap.
Okay, let's talk about the vehicle evidence for a minute, because this provides a really interesting contrast in what we know about the killer's lifestyle.
It really does. Forensics found carpet fibers on Rachel's shoes, and they weren't from some luxury vehicle. They were cheap, automotive-grade carpet fibers, a mix of brown, beige, and black.
What does that point to?
It points to an older model van or maybe a truck, something strictly utilitarian, a work vehicle.
So he drives a beater, but the camera...
The camera is the key. Dallas takes the digital file of the photo to a specialty shop called Image Makers. The experts there, they analyze the metadata, the resolution, the lens flare. They confirm the photo was taken with either a Razeri or a Bornese unit.
And I'm guessing those aren't cheap.
In 2059, a Razeri 5M is the equivalent of a top-of-the-line Hasselblad or Leica today. It's a professional tool. It costs thousands upon thousands of credits.
So let's put this together. We have a guy who's driving a van with cheap, shedding carpet, but he's shooting with a camera that costs a fortune.
It tells us his financial priorities are completely skewed. He doesn't care about comfort. He doesn't care about looking rich or successful. He pours every single resource he has into his art.
So that narrows the suspect pool.
Drastically. It points to a serious hobbyist or a professional who sacrifices everything else in their life for the equipment.
Speaking of tech, let's talk about how they trace the email to Nadine First.
Oh.
Because this gives us such a great look at the nightlife of 2059, the data junkie.
This whole scene is pure cyberpunk. The transmission was traced to a club called Make the Scene. It's a data club. So you have to imagine a nightclub, loud music, flashing lights. But half the people there are plugged into data terminals, surfing the net, hacking, trading information.
Dallas goes there, and she quickly realizes the killer was way too smart to send the file himself.
He used a proxy. He used a cutout. Security footage shows a data junkie. The file describes her as a young woman, mixed race, very thin sitting at a terminal. The killer approaches her, but he's careful. He stays in the shadows of the club. He hands her a physical data disk and a credit stick.
So he just pays this random person to send the email for him.
Exactly. It creates a digital air gap. It's brilliant in a sick way. If the police trace the IP address, it leads to the club. If they check the user logs for that terminal, it leads to the girl who has no idea who he was. The killer himself remains a ghost.
But it does confirm he was physically there. He walked into that crowded club. He bought a drink to blend in. He observed the scene.
It just reinforces that safe face idea. This isn't some recluse hiding away in a basement. He walks among the young, the vibrant, the people he preys on. He's a predator camouflaged perfectly within the herd.
Okay, so let's get into the suspect pool. Because Dallas and her partner, Detective Peabody, they start shaking the trees, and 3 very different men fall out. And they each seem to represent a different kind of, well, a different kind of unpleasantness.
It's a classic lineup of means, motive, and opportunity, but you have to filter all of it through the lens of this very specific psychological profile they're building. Let's start with Jackson Hooper.
Hooper, the teaching assistant.
Hooper is the ego suspect. He's young, he's a model, an aspiring playwright, he's undeniably handsome, and boy, does he know it.
And he knew Rachel, of course.
He was the TA for her faces class. He admits it to Dallas right away. He pursued her. He asked her out on a date, and she turned him down flat.
And his reaction to that rejection is, well, it's pretty telling.
He describes himself as being baffled. He literally uses that word. He says, and this is a direct quote from the file, "I'm prime merchandise." He just could not compute that a girl like Rachel wouldn't want him.
That is such a massive red flag for narcissism. I am a gift to women. How dare she refuse this gift?
Precisely. It's a classic narcissistic injury. And narcissists can be extremely dangerous when their self-image is threatened. He has the physical strength to abduct her. He has the photography knowledge. He's a model. He's been around cameras his whole life. But the question is he the artist?
Does he fit the manifesto?
I don't think so. Hooper seems far too obsessed with himself to be this obsessed with someone else's light. His focus is inward, the killer's is outward, in a predatory way.
Okay, then we have suspect number 2, Diego Feliciano.
Mm.
And I have to ask, what's with the pajamas?
The electric blue silk pajamas.
I mean, Dallas and Peabody go to his apartment at noon, and he answers the door in these things. What does that tell you about a person?
It tells you he thinks he's a player, a real operator. Diego is the sleaze suspect. He works at a Mexican restaurant called Hola, but that's clearly just a cover. His real business is dealing drugs illegals, they call them, and running small-time scams.
He lied about Rachel, too. Big time.
Oh, a huge lie. He claimed they had a brief and beautiful romance and that he was the one who broke it off. Dallas pushes him for about 5 seconds, and the truth just comes tumbling out. He was stalking her, he hassled her at a club, and she told him to get lost.
But he does connect to the toxicology report.
He does. That's his strongest link to the crime. He has easy access to opiates and tranquilizers through his drug connections. And his uncle owns a van, which is a potential match for the fiber evidence.
So he has the means and the vehicle, but does he have the mindset?
And that's the fiction point. Diego is messy. He's hot-headed. He's a thug. The killer who posed Rachel was meticulous. He used Nuskin. He wired her into a perfect pose. Diego feels like the kind of guy who would panic and dump the body in the river. He just lacks the artistic discipline, the patience.
Which brings us to our 3rd suspect. And honestly, this guy is the one who gave me nightmares. Dirk Hastings.
Yeah.
The photographer.
Hastings is the rage suspect, but he is also, very clearly, the artist suspect. Dallas visits his studio, which is called Portography. He is a massive individual. The text describes him as ugly as a bear, with a shaved head and this incredibly dominating physical presence.
And he's violent, like immediately violent.
Instantly. Dallas interrupts a photo session and Hastings just explodes. He screams at her. He physically threatens her. And Dallas, being Dallas, just kicks him squarely in the groin to drop him.
Which, as a side note, is exactly why we love Eve Dallas. She does not hesitate.
Not for a second. But once they get Hastings into an interrogation room, the conversation shifts from pure physical violence to art. And that's when it gets really, really creepy.
This is where the profile starts to just scream, suspect, right?
It's a perfect match on paper. Hastings is a serious, professional photographer. And when Dallas shows him the photo of the dead Rachel, the killer's masterpiece Hastings doesn't recoil in horror. He doesn't look away. He leans in.
He critiques it, like an art critic.
He calls it almost brilliant. He says the subject is dead, of course. He spots the death in her eyes immediately, but he isn't horrified. He's impressed. He actually admires the lighting, the composition.
And he talks about creating intimacy of spirit. What was that about?
He admits to stalking women with his camera. He says he wants to capture them when they don't know he's there because that's the only way to get the truth of their essence. He fits that soul stealer psychology perfectly. He believes he owns the subjects he photographs. He possesses them through his lens.
So he checks every single box. He has the studio near the college. He has the skills. He has the high-end equipment. He has the God complex.
And he has the rage. But there's a doubt. Is he too loud? Too obvious? Our killer is a shadow. Hastings is a thunderstorm. That's the doubt Dallas has. Hastings is definitely a monster, but is he this monster?
I want to take a step back from the investigation for a moment and talk about the world this is all happening in. Because the setting, 2059, it isn't just window dressing. It really affects how these people live and how the crime is committed.
It creates this fascinating texture of high-tech, low-life. You've got things like auto chefs, which are basically advanced 3D food printers in everyone's kitchen. You have droids serving drinks in bars. You have links instead of smartphones.
But then you have this massive class divide. On one hand, you have Roarke, Eve's husband.
Who is, for all intents and purposes, richer than God.
I mean, literally. He has flying cars, private jets, a personal medical staff on call 24/7. He lives in this mansion that's basically a fortress of unimaginable luxury.
And then you have Eve, who's a cop. And she spends her days knee-deep in the grime. She's the one dealing with the recycling bins on Delancey Street.
There's a little subplot in this case that I think is really important for understanding Eve's character. It involves her home life, specifically her ongoing war with the butler, Somerset.
The major domo, Somerset, they loathe each other. It's a tradition.
It is. But in this story, Somerset trips over the cat.
Galahad. The fat, one-eared cat.
Galahad. Somerset trips over him, falls down a flight of stairs, and breaks his leg.
And Eve's reaction is not exactly sympathetic.
No. She literally does a happy dance in her office. She is visibly, openly thrilled that he's going to be incapacitated for a while.
It's so petty, but it's so human.
It is. But it leads to this scene that I think really shows Eve's vulnerability. Her best friend, Mavis Freestone, comes to visit the injured Somerset. Now, Mavis is a whole other character. She's pregnant. She's wearing a backless sunsuit with little bells in her hair. She is pure chaos and joy in human form.
And she shows Eve the ultrasound picture of her baby.
And Eve looks at it, and her first thought is that it looks like a hairless monkey. She's terrified.
And why is that in the story? Why do we need to know that the tough-as-nails murder cop is afraid of an ultrasound?
I think it's to balance her character. Eve Dallas can look at a decomposing body in a dumpster and analyze the ligature marks without even flinching. She understands death. She is comfortable in a way with the darkness.
But show her a symbol of pure, unadulterated life. A baby, a pregnant woman, she panics. She has no idea how to handle the normal stuff. It's what makes her such a compelling hero. She's deeply flawed. She fights for the victims of violence, but she struggles to connect with the living.
And it also creates this amazing contrast with the killer. The killer claims to love life and light, but he destroys it. Eve is deeply uncomfortable with life, but she dedicates herself to protecting it.
That's a beautiful parallel. The killer destroys what he claims to love. Eve protects what she doesn't fully understand.
Okay, let's get back to the tech evidence.
Huh.
Because there's a specific piece of analysis about the murder weapon, or rather the other murder weapon, the camera itself.
Right. Dallas goes back to that camera shop, Image Makers. And the clerk, a woman named Nella, gives her an insight that isn't technical, it's emotional, it's artistic.
What does she see in the photo that Dallas doesn't?
She looks at the picture of the dead Rachel Howard and says that it shows affection and understanding.
Affection for the person he just murdered.
Yes. She says the photographer didn't just take a picture. He knew the subject. He captured her best side. He lit her with care and with love. This reinforces the idea that, in his twisted mind, the killer didn't hate Rachel. He loved her.
It's the love-to-death trope, taken to its most extreme.
It is. And it makes that safe face theory even stronger. He likely spent time watching her, maybe even talking to her, building up this entire fantasy of who she was long before he ever took her.
So, as we approach the end of this deep dive, Where does the case actually stand? What have we got?
Well, Dallas has reconstructed the crime pretty thoroughly. She knows Rachel was taken from near the college, probably by someone she knew or trusted. She knows she was tranquilized, likely with a pressure syringe.
So no needle marks.
Yeah.
Clean.
Very clean. She knows she was taken to a secondary location, a studio or some other private space, where she was killed, prepped, posed, and photographed, and then unceremoniously dumped.
And we have the short list of suspects. Hooper, the ego, Diego, the sleaze, and Hastings, the violent artist.
And we have the threat. The manifesto is crystal clear on this. The killer writes that he is full of energy now after taking Rachel's light, but that energy will fade. He believes he and Rachel are one, but he's going to need more light soon.
He's an addict.
He absolutely is. He's addicted to the feeling of capturing a soul. And like any addict, he's going to need another fix. The file makes it clear. He is already out there hunting for his next subject.
It just brings us right back to the central chilling theme of this case, the idea of the soul stealer.
It's such an ancient concept, isn't it? Many indigenous cultures had this belief that photography could literally steal a part of your soul, that by capturing your image, the photographer took ownership of your spirit.
And here in 2059, with all this high-tech gear, we see a killer who is making that old superstition terrifyingly literal.
He believes he owns them. He believes the photograph is the container for their soul, and he holds the key to it forever.
It really makes you look at your own photo gallery on your link a little differently. We live in a world, even now, not just in 2059, where we document everything. We filter our faces. We stage our vacations. We're constantly trying to freeze time.
We are. We are all, in our own way, trying to fight mortality with images. We want to be remembered. We want to look perfect forever. This killer just takes that universal human desire, the desire to be immortalized, and twists it into something monstrous. He values the aesthetic completely over the human.
Values the aesthetic over the human. I think that's the thought I want to leave our listeners with today. It's a dangerous line to cross.
It is. When the image becomes more important than the reality, you lose your humanity.
Well, on that very heavy note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive into the case files of Lieutenant Eve Dallas and the portrait killer.
It's been a dark one, for sure.
It has. But I think it's a powerful reminder that even in the future, the oldest crimes obsession, vanity possession, they're still with us.
And that we need people like Eve Dallas to stand between us and that darkness.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening. Stay safe out there.
And maybe think twice before you post that next photo.
We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.